Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our Young Onset Council. Today's session, we are in the middle of November 2021. I am Polly Dawkins. I am the Executive Director of the Davis Phinney Foundation, and we are thrilled that you are here with us again today. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the microphone over to our Young Onset Council members and welcome Kat Hill, who's our moderator for today. Thanks, Kat.
You bet. Thanks, Polly. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Young Onset Council. We had at the last council a really interesting discussion about anxiety and depression, and we were kind of just getting into the weeds with it a little bit, if you know what I mean. And I kind of like to pick up our discussion there. Doesn't that sound like a lot of fun, everybody? But more than that, I want to spend some time today really talking about how each of us has our own strategies to get us out of those days when we're really having a dark day. Everybody listening has had a dark day before they had Parkinson's. Since they've had Parkinson's, they will have dark days again, for sure. All of us will, no matter if you have Parkinson's or not. So these are tools that are sort of universal tools, perhaps, but we'll tailor it, especially for those of you with Parkinson's. So we are super honored today to have a special guest here, and we have also some new faces. And so I'm going to introduce our special guest, and her focus is movement with a strong history in dance. Pamela Quinn is here with us today, and she's very well known in these circles. She's done extraordinary work. A lot of us have followed her. We've seen her perform. We've seen her work. We share it with our support groups, and she's been a professional dancer for 20 years. She's also been living with Parkinson's disease for over 25 years. Her personal experience of Parkinson's, along with her keen knowledge of the body and how it moves, stems from her professional dance training. And it allows her to analyze movement problems and create solutions for folks living with Parkinson's disease. She developed the PD Movement Lab, which is a functional dance class for people living with Parkinson's. She teaches regularly at Dance for PD in Brooklyn, at Northwell's PD program, and at JCC Manhattan. She also presents and performs at conferences around the world. A lot of us were really honored to see her in Kyoto, Japan. So she's going to lend a really unique perspective today to us about the importance of movement and as it relates to getting us out of those dark days. So I also would like to welcome Robin. I haven't met Robin directly. I think she joined for another group, but I want to say hello to her. And Robin, tell me again how to say your last name. More 80s?
Yes, just think of the decade of the 80s and you want more of them. It's just pronounced more 80s.
More 80s. You're never going to forget Robin. I know that I'm not going to. So welcome. The rest of you I've met. So when we left off last time, Shri was really kind to share a lot of kind of the inner workings of some of her, how it feels when you are having a bad mental health day with Parkinson's. And I'd love to kind of do a round robin discussion like we did last time with our extraordinary leader, Heather. I have big shoes to fill today. So why don't, I'm going to give you a minute to get settled. Shri, Karen, can you share with us a little bit about what it feels like when you're having a really down day, and maybe what's your go-to to help get you out of that?
Okay. I had a really hard time with this the first couple of years after my diagnosis, and it really hasn't been until recently where I've been able to really like dip into a toolbox, if you will, and pull a tool out to feel better, because I have those days. One of the things I've done is really build a strong community of friends who have Parkinson's that I can tap into. And that has been some of the people here on this council and other people in my life. You know, I started a young onset support group because there wasn't one in my community that was very strong, and I just took the reins and did that. And I think that over the years has grown into something really positive. So I've done that. Day to day, I meditate. I do mindfulness every day. I try to keep something pleasant around myself, whether it's something I like to look at, like a piece of art, or a nice cup of tea. And when I'm feeling down, I make it a simple, small action to take a sip of my tea. I mean, this is my mindfulness practice to, I'm drinking cinnamon tea right now. I just like the smell. And that helps me feel better. So,
did you have a mindfulness practice before you were diagnosed with Parkinson's, or has that developed since your diagnosis?
I've known about mindfulness and I've used it time to time, but I try to practice a really what I call nervous system friendly lifestyle. I do things I enjoy. I see things I enjoy. I spend time around people I enjoy, and I try to just build a life around myself. I think it's a newer practice, really. I mean, I think it's come out of necessity and it's grown into joyful practice.
Kevin, are you up for sharing? I'd love first to hear about your hip hop dance moves, since Heather put that in the text. And then Pamela, I'm going to have you up next on deck, so you can be getting your head around the question. What do you think, Kev? I think you're on mute, babe.
For those of you who see me on David Levithal's Monday morning class, Dance for PD, I am not a hip hop dancer, I guarantee it. No rhythm whatsoever. So I correct that rumor going around.
All right, it's on the record, Kevin.
Thank you. You got to clear the record. So, I'm the last person that loves to hear someone say, rah, rah, go, just bust it, you can do it. Because to me, that it sometimes rings hollow when you're sort of in the depths of your blackness. And that's the last thing you want to hear is, hey, you can do it, just toughen up, man up, and just get through it. But I feel like I've had a pretty good grasp on my ebbs and flows. I've always said that Parkinson's is dealing not with the highs, but with the lows, and helping yourself get to the troughs, and recognizing when you're about to get into a trough, what you can do, proactively. Like Karen, I've tried mindfulness many times. I've even enrolled in a mindfulness Parkinson study, which did wonders. And you would think based on the results, I would be practicing meditation every single morning, but I don't. As someone who professes strong discipline to workouts, mindfulness is not something I do every single day, even though I should. But I will tell you that what works for me the most is having a workout buddy that I meet with 3 or 4 times a week. Our wives and our girlfriends wonder, how can you go to the gym for 2 to 3 hours? And I'll tell you, the first half an hour of our workouts is really spent stretching, doing a very eclectic mixture of Tai Chi, Qigong yoga, and just general stretching. But mostly the most useful part of it is really talking. Sharing with you how difficult today was to stuff a pillow in a pillowcase, or how I stumbled emptying the dishwasher, and laughing, just laughing and saying, all right, well, that's why we're here to work out. And so I'm blessed with having great workout partners that share that camaraderie in what we're doing. And to me, I can't stress the need for having a friend like that.
Yeah, I think there's some really valuable points that I'm going to circle back to help those of you out there listening, wondering like, yeah, how do you get that? We're going to get into that in a bit, but I want to give everybody a chance to share here. Pamela, what are your thoughts? How, you've had 25 years of dealing with this diagnosis, or more than that. Share with us some of your wisdom.
Well, I would like to reiterate what Kevin said, that the social aspect, the social connection is essential to maintaining our mental health, and that if you, as far as exercise goes, I know I need a social part, a social component. To do it yourself is just really hard, and you shouldn't beat yourself up about it. You should just accept that it's difficult, and I'll honor an appointment I have with someone else in a way that I won't honor it for myself. And so the buddy system is just essential in developing a community. I mean, I swim. I have someone that I play ping pong with. I have someone that I do a ballet bar with. I have someone else that I play tennis with. I've developed a group of people to help me activate me, because otherwise it just won't happen. And so I really encourage everyone to put energy into the social aspect of helping motivate you. And doing anything is important. I mean, just do something if you're not feeling good, whether it's cooking or just anything that gets you up and gets you moving.
Yeah.
Even taking a walk. And Karen was also talking about doing things that give you pleasure. I think that's really important, to know in advance what makes you happy, because then if you know that, you can go to that without having to think about it. And whether it's a phone call with someone that you cherish, or whether it's playing a game of cards or whatever, whether it's buying some flowers and having them at home, know what makes you happy, and conversely, know what makes you unhappy, so that you can focus more on the positive and take away the negative. So I think those things, activating yourself, using other people to help you do that, movement is a wonderful way to get you out of your bad mood, because the music is so transporting, and it can put you in a different state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also social.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I think that there's so many components that we're talking about here. And I think the fact that all of us are here on this call today speaks to how much we all need each other. And that action of showing up feels better. The action of seeing somebody else's face and knowing somebody else understands, we can't really undervalue that. I'm gonna put our last two panelists on hold for a second with sharing their stories. There's a really good question on the chat that I'd like to address, and see if anybody has thoughts. I won't put anybody on the spot for it. How do you know if disease is progressing or something else is going on? Is being tired a sign of disease progressing? How do you exercise when you can hardly breathe? That is a beautifully worded question. Does anyone want to take a stab, or do you want?
I'll deal with the breathing part.
Yeah, you want to touch the breathing? Perfect. And then Shri, you're on deck, friend.
The breathing, shallow breathing is another symptom of PD that people don't often talk about, and it's hard because it makes us anxious and concerned about whether we can exercise. My breathing changes according to where I am in my med cycle, and when my meds are functioning, I try to work my breath. I blow up balloons, or I
Pamela, your mic is giving us some static. I don't know if you want to pull it out a little bit, see if that helps. Forgive me for interrupting.
No, that's fine.
That's better. That's better.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
I try to work my breath by blowing up balloons, or playing the recorder, or swimming. But I think you have to take your breath seriously, because if you can't breathe, you can't move well. And movement is the only neuroprotective practice we have. So I think stretching your diaphragm and forward and back and whatever way you can is really important too. So
Yeah, thank you. I think that helps. Just even starting with breath, right? Sri,
yeah.
what do you have?
My voice is a little hoarse, so let me know if you can't hear me.
Okay.
First, I'd love to say I think chocolate should be a great neuroprotector. So I'm just going to throw that out there. So the more I eat chocolate, the more I feel I'm getting better. It's actually not true, but I'm sticking with that.
Well, it's knowing what you love, Sri, right? Chocolate is something you love and brings you happiness. So perhaps you're not all wrong there.
Yeah. So if anybody is listening from Canada, please send me Godiva truffles, the speculous kind specifically. Thank you very much. Because they are no longer available in America.
Yeah.
In terms of how the disease is progressing, I asked my my old neurologist and my new neurologist that question. And my old neurologist said, "You're doing really well." And I said, "Well, how do you know? I mean, how do I know how I'm progressing?" And depending, like if you are a young female, and I'm saying young, maybe 55 and younger, we'll say, not that anything is older, but diagnosed with YOPD, there aren't a lot of studies or markers to base how you're progressing against. So she couldn't really tell me how I'm progressing in comparison to other people because there isn't really enough data for that. When I asked my new neurologist how I'm doing, he said, "You're doing great." I said, "Okay, but what does that mean?" Because for me, when I think of how I would have been at 46 without Parkinson's, I don't feel that I'm doing so great. So in terms of how do you know you're progressing, that is a very difficult question. I think it's a combination of asking your doctor, figuring out what your own symptoms are, and also realizing not everything is Parkinson's disease, right? If you get a cold, that isn't Parkinson's disease. That's getting a cold. If you are not sleeping well, part of that is Parkinson's disease, but part of that is a repercussion of not sleeping well, the fatigue, the tiredness, but it also could be Parkinson's disease. So these are all like systemic, integrated systems and that change the way we feel. So I don't think there's an easy answer. What I like to do is I like to document how I'm doing every day when I remember to, when I can write and I'm not tremory, and note down my symptoms and do like a little audio check-in. Sometimes I'll take my iPhone or smartphone out, put out the audio recording pad and say, "This is how I'm feeling today." If I'm eating unhealthy, I definitely feel worse. Never with chocolate, but all the other stuff. So like last night or the night before, it's 12 a.m. in the morning. I could not sleep at all. Hadn't slept for about 24 hours. I went to the kitchen. I got a bag of Sun Chips, Harvest Cheddar Sun Chips. It was such a great day. Such a great moment.
Sri's answer is kitchen related.
Release, but I'll tell you really quickly. Yeah, just to wrap it up. The next morning, I felt terrible. I felt absolutely terrible. So diet makes a huge difference. So how do you know if you're progressing? How do you know what it is? You don't really know. And sometimes the doctor tells you isn't always the right answer. So you have to work with your doctor, work with a physical therapist, work with your friends, figure it out together. I think it's a team effort to figure out how you're doing.
Yeah, I would concur. Robin, more 80s. I'm going to have to say your whole name every time. I'm sorry. It just makes me smile. Do you have something to add to that? And if so, I'd love to hear how you kind of dig out of a tough day.
Sure. So I ascribe to the belief that the practice of bring the body and the mind will follow. And I started putting practices into place years before I was ever diagnosed with Parkinson's. And I just translated them into applying them to Parkinson's. And I'm extremely social. All of this was before Parkinson's. Before Parkinson's was even a blip on the radar screen for me, I knew that I wouldn't go on a bike ride unless I was with friends. I wasn't going to do it alone. And so for me, the social aspect is imperative, and having an accountability partner. And someone put in the chat, you know, does it have to be people with PD, or can it be other folks? Whoever's your people, whatever you're comfortable with. I have some things I like to do with friends who have PD because they get me and they understand me. And then I have other times, frankly, I want to be away from them because I don't want my whole life to be about PD. And so there's a couple things I do. That is, one is exercise with Bring the Body and the Mind Will Follow, and meet with an accountability partner, meet with people. If people are expecting me to show up, I'm not going to have an excuse why. And it's kind of a habit that formed years ago. But the other thing for me is that I do stained glass and mosaic work, and I'm able to still do that work. I know I won't always be able to still do it. I had to get away from it for a little while until I had the deep brain stimulation, and I'm back to it now. I like the mosaic work because it's less skilled. There's more room for error than with stained glass. But COVID was very difficult because all of that group stuff went away. And I'm happy to report I went to a mosaic class on Friday. I took a vacation day and went to a class, and that recharges me, being around other people who are doing similar creative pursuits. And then I can do the creative work when I'm alone. I get recharged being with people, but when I'm having a down day, I just go up to my art studio and I fiddle around. I look at things that make me happy, brightly colored glass and tiles and things like that. I also want to pick up on something that Pam and Sri said about the question that came in. I think it's imperative that we talk to our doctors, but Parkinson's, a lot of my friends who don't have Parkinson's thought that I was overdoing it when I was researching so much stuff in the beginning of my diagnosis. And I don't, because I eat on an autoimmune diet, and I try to rigorously maintain what functionality I have. And it's hard because I don't know if I would have progressed at the same level if I hadn't have done that. I don't know, because I can't have a parallel universe like sliding doors. But I know for a fact when I have weird rosacea breakouts, and I know certain things that make that happen. It's inflammation based, and I know like dairy products and egg products, and so I steer clear of those, because if inflammation is showing up on my skin, inflammation is going on inside of my body as well. Mm-hmm. But I have things that show up that when I have a flare up and I don't know what it is that I've eaten. So I've just decided that I'm going to start working with an inflammation specialist that specializes in kind of dietary interventions. And this isn't anything other than minimizing the amount of inflammation I'm putting my body through. So that's what I've got.
I think it's, yeah, I'm going to comment, and then Pamela, then the floor is yours. I think it's Parkinson. We've all heard this in everything we've gone to. You've seen one person with Parkinson's, you've seen one person with Parkinson's. It's confusing for us, partly because it's confusing for everybody about what symptoms we're having, what's going to work best, how is it going to progress. I would just like to throw out that you get to be your own expert on your body. I'm hearing different things from different people, different kind of exercises, right? We all know the best exercise is the one you're going to do again, right? No matter what, whether you're meeting friends, whether you're going to crank the tunes, whether you're going to listen to Pamela's videos, whether you're meeting your friend at the gym. So I think you have to start to learn how your own expert. And I just want to get back to when you can hardly breathe, starting with the breath is important, and build from there. And also to know you're not alone. You know, if you're tuning into this, I don't want you to feel alone. If you don't have a group, we can be your group. We can help hook you up with a group. So I think I just wanted to be sure we touched and answered that question. Pamela, what do you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that this issue of self-analysis can be furthered by if you go to a website of Sarah Rigare, it's
Yes.
Rigare.
Yeah.
She does a lot of analysis of how one is doing, and has forms for tracking your progress and for discerning what issues you're dealing with, and etc. So that just might be useful.
Thank you,
tool.
Lee. Yeah, she popped it up in our chat. That's great, Pamela. Heather, my friend.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'll tell you, I couldn't do it without this lady. So,
So about the
community.
peripheral nervous system, the autonomic nervous system with breath. There are so many programs. Hey, Tom, what's going down?
Welcome.
So many programs for breath, like the LSVT, VQT loud. What is it? LSVT?
Is it LSVT?
LGBTQ?
Aluminum.
CRS? Sorry, I'll stop. FCRS.
Yeah.
So, but this breath thing, we can take the breath in for a count of 3, let it out for 3, and build on up to 15, like many people have suggested in like all kinds of programs. Pamela's done this, and Pamela knows well that music gives us a little boost. I was perusing your site, and I noticed you have everything from like swing dancing to classical to like pop music to disco. I mean, we have to switch it up. You have something to look forward to. If you do the same workout every time, you're in the same place every time, you go to the same drab gym, you're not going to keep doing it. If you have to schlep to the gym, you're not going to do it. Make it easy on yourself. Set up something that you have at home for the nasty weather or the days when you can't get out. Set up something online, which you can see there's a plethora to choose from. Sure, you'll see some links pop up there in the chat. And then set up another thing where you are accountable, where you go out and you meet people, like even just for a hike. Were it not for the hikes that the women take in the morning, the world would blow up, because we get to unload there together, So let's do it, let's do it together.
Start small. Don't. And I think there's real value to getting outside too. Do you all feel that way?
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Even on like the rainiest of days, I live in Portland, Oregon, right? It rains a lot here, but if I didn't get outside some, I think I would kind of implode, especially during COVID. Just a walk in my neighborhood will shift my mood. So, hey, Tom, welcome. We're chatting about how you get yourself out of a dark hole when you're having a rough day, maybe having trouble logging in to a webinar kind of thing.
I wasn't going to be able to make it because I was trying to run a urgent errand this afternoon, but I just got that done. So Polly asked me if I could jump on. Well, I'll just pull over and jump on. So here I am.
Love it. How do you get yourself out of kind of the mental hole sometimes that we can get in? Do you have tips for our listeners? That's
one way to get out of it. Pull over and
pull over, stop driving.
Yeah, really. It's the easiest way for me to do something like that is just to start doing the things that I just have to get done. I keep a list of things that I need to do, and maybe not so much need to do, but want to do, stuff like that. So I don't get into a deep hole very often, but it happens from time to time. And so I just try to stay focused on and get refocused on some of the things I need to do, and getting caught up with things really helps me feel better about, just doing what I do. So, so I get behind a lot because the short term or the short, I can't focus on stuff very long. Yeah. Attention span. Thank you. That always makes life tough. So I have a million little projects going on all over the place. And so I just pick something up and start working on it. And again, that kind of gives me some self-fulfillment on that end. And of course, the exercise is always helpful. So
yeah. I find having a list is really helpful. I'm the queen of Post-its on my desk. And if I'm having a crummy day, I'll have something on my list like journal or gratitude. Yeah. Walk the dog. Right. Even taking out the garbage or making my bed makes me feel better. The tidy bed thing. So for what it's worth, you're laughing at me, Shree. Shree's cracking up.
Practice using your voice and yelling at somebody else to take out the garbage too.
There's something. I know Heather has teenagers. Yeah, Kevin, yours, and then Shree.
I know this sounds a little bit cheerleaderish, but one of the things that really helps me out is helping someone else out. I feel like if I take someone's call who's in need, and I hear their story and I listen and then I respond and they feel better, I somehow get uplifted as well.
Kevin, being of service, there's a lot written about gratitude and doing for others, that it really is probably really physiologically good for us to do that. So that doesn't surprise me. And don't you think too that even though you're in a crummy place, you put the words out that you really believe, even if at the very moment you're struggling to believe
Right.
it, saying them out loud and saying them to somebody else somehow makes your brain, that neural pathway gets activated, right? Okay, I'm back on I'm going to be, grateful highway, or I'm going to not stay down highway.
It's all a matter of imaging and sort of in your mind seeing success by helping someone else, and you start believing what you're telling them.
Exactly.
It's the best antidepressant I know, helping others, really.
Helping others, yeah. Sri,
Yeah,
you have a comment, and then Robin, and then Tom. Yeah.
Remind me what I'm supposed to be talking about.
I didn't know if you wanted to comment on anything about being of service. Sorry. I thought I saw a hand.
No, I think in terms of how you make yourself feel better, first I'll say, Kat, if you want to fly down and make my bed, please feel free anytime. Anytime. Okay. I will say the smell of fresh laundry is beautiful, especially when I don't do my laundry. So that's great. Somebody else can do it for me. That's great.
You're a real friend, Sri. You're a real friend.
Thank you. So I actually like to feel depressed sometimes, and I'm not talking clinical depression. I'm not going to say like, let me rephrase. I don't like to be pulled out of a dark spot all the time. And I will say, if you feel that you are going clinically dark or it's really getting to the extreme, you would need to seek medical help. Do not, do what I'm doing. This is just me feeling like blue or depressed. Like Rainy Days on Mondays, like the Carpenter song, although I don't know if they originally were the people who sang it, but sometimes I just want to be down. I don't want anyone to lift me up. I just want to be what I'm being. I want to feel sad about Parkinson's. I think we need to let out those emotions. It's like that movie where you have the little people with the different emotions, that little animated movie, and no one paid attention to the little blue person who was sadness. Because you need sadness. You need some of those emotions in your life to balance it out. So every time I'm feeling sad, if someone's like, cheer up or exercise, I just want to say basically something really terrible, not safe for this webinar, and they leave me alone. But on the days where I do need to be cheered up, I actually have a list. There we go. It's not that song, Heather. I decided to bring myself a list of things, to make a list of things that will cheer me up, because oftentimes you won't have a friend to call. Everyone is busy with their lives. So there are days where I'm feeling just so desperate to talk to somebody. I'll call 7 people. Nobody picks up the phone. Nobody is free. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the afternoon. So I have a list. I read a romance novel. I'll watch an old funny Cary Grant movie. I will watch videos of my nieces and nephews. I will look at old baby photos of kids that I love. I will read a funny book. I'll watch a comedy. I will listen to a podcast. I will eat chocolate. I will look around the house.
I knew the kitchen was coming.
Yeah, exactly. I look around the house. I might buy something. I might buy something that I actually already have, which if anyone wants to help me avoid that, that's great. But it gives me a little zing of pleasure. I suddenly might get an idea to do something creative, or I just might force myself to get out of bed and just move and go out and smell the earth. If I've been stuck inside for days, because sometimes that can happen. It's not apathy. It's just sometimes you just wake up and you're like, oh, how many days went by? 5, 6, and I've never been out of the house. So
I think, Sri, I think you have a really valid point. It's like we need to grieve, but it's the after the grief. It's like when we need to turn things around, and we're gonna have, life has ups and downs. So we're not trying to say you're supposed to be happy all the time. It's more that if you're feeling lost in that dark place, we're trying to, give some tools. And I like the tools that you shared, because everybody's going to need different tools. Robin, how about you? And then Tom.
Sure. To me, what we're talking about is not really clinical depression. It's more apathy. And I'm sure that there's people out there, before I was ever diagnosed with Parkinson's, my whole life, I never had depression. I was never a depressed person. And I had an episode of a major depressive episode as one of my first earliest indicators, but I didn't know that's what it was. And it knocked me out for about 3 months. And I sought medical treatment. I work in the mental health field, so I had a lot of strategies and a lot of staff support to do what I needed to do to take care of myself. I thought it was situationally driven because my ex-husband had moved to another state. He had a business opportunity. I had started going back and forth. I thought it was circumstantially driven, but I believe today it predated my diagnosis by about a year to a year and a half. And it was severe, and there was no pep talking myself. There was no, it required serious medical intervention and time off and a lot of TLC. And so if folks out there are dealing with that level of depression, ask for help, ask your doctors, get a game plan with your healthcare practitioners in place. I did know that exercise helped. I mean, exercise helps everything, but it's very hard to motivate when you're in that place.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we're not here to take the place of your mental health system. I believe that everybody deserves a counselor and a touch point, whether you have that in a friend, whether you have that in clergy, whether you have that in a support group. So that is an excellent point, Robin. I appreciate that. Tom, and then I want to shift gears a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be real quick on that.
No rush.
About helping others. Some of that time you're helping others, you're actually helping yourself, as if you made the phone call to yourself and in talking yourself into things that you would normally use the Parkinson's as an excuse for not doing, like snow skiing, for example. I'll say, well, I can't, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll make it a point to talk myself back into doing stuff like that. But the other thing that somebody mentioned was calling or going back and calling friends or taking a call from somebody. That's always really uplifting to me. And I love going back and calling people that I've talked to in the past and just following up to see how they're doing. That usually it brightens their day, which really brightens mine. And I genuinely care about what's happening. So, and I often find that if I don't call, I don't hear back from a lot of people. So that's important to me to keep those connections.
Yeah. Connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
I love Heather. Yeah. Heather, I love what you're saying in the chat.
Can I give a shout out to VR? If anyone uses virtual reality, Pamela, I don't know if you do the ping pong with others online or in person.
In person.
Okay, great. Yeah. And then Karen Frank was nodding about the VR.
Well,
it's multi-generational. Everybody can do the ping pong in person, but then the VR, we have an extra opportunity if we're shut in to connect even that way. So we could play games with people, enjoy music, even dancing, which we can do by checking in on your videos. I mean, there's so much there. There's no reason to just sit around and be like, there's so much there. So there's always something to snap us out of our little stinking thinking. But the music.
I was just going to say music. I wanted to get back to Pamela's comment. And Pamela, how do you select your music for your workouts? Because I think even just hearing the music, we heard some of Pamela's music before this, and boy, it shifted my headspace. So how do you select it for your?
Well, that's a really good question. I have to like it, and I try to find music that takes me to a different place, either mood-wise or energy-wise, or that creates a specific way to move, like melting ice cream or something that's very upbeat. And I also try to, when I'm making up my movement, it's symptom driven. I'm trying to deal with Parkinson's symptoms. So if rigidity, I might be working with the image of being seaweed and water. And I might find some jazz piece or some blues or something to go with that. Spotify has this system where they list different musical pieces that you might like according to what your playlist is. So that can help me find new pieces of music. I'm always searching for them, and I like to find as many different kinds of music as possible. Of course, for Parkinson's, music that has a really clear beat is really important to help us move, whether it's a march or whether it's Kodo, taiko drumming, or David Byrne or Rolling Stones or whatever. And those of us who grew up in the 60s and 70s too grew up in an era of such fabulous music. There's so much that we know that we don't realize, that we have to draw on as well. So I have a piece of music today which people might be interested to move to. It's Brazilian, and it's very energetic.
Yeah, I love that. And I love, does anybody have a playlist for different moods or different, Heather, I'm guessing you do. If
Sorry, I was answering someone in the chat. Yeah, I have 500 playlists on Spotify for every possible mood. The only thing I'm not into is death metal.
Me either. Yeah.
Not so much. But Pamela, I was impressed with yours. What's that?
It's got good beat, just too much of it.
Yeah, and we do have a couple of rappers here.
Easy.
Bree, what do you think?
I like death metal. I pretty much like everything.
I knew it.
Yeah. Norwegian death metal. I just wanted to quickly touch on what I think Polly had put a comment in the chat about someone transitioning in YOPD groups. And we actually recently, with the YOPD group that I'm a part of, went through almost the exact same scenario that the
Sri, I'm going to put it out there for our listeners.
Sure.
There were some questions about starting a young onset support group, and then as people aged, is there succession planning, and how do you plan for that when you end up being a young onset group now suddenly in your 60s? So, okay, Sri, take it. That's the question.
Right. So in my young onset group, we were all like 30s and 40s when we first started, and now we're kind of older. And Kevin knows. Kevin was part of that group originally when I first joined it in San Francisco. And then a question came up that said, well, there are some younger people who've joined the group that feel that the name is a little bit misleading. You know, these are people who are maybe in their mid to late 20s and very early 30s. And we're all, 40s is so much older, and it can definitely seem that way. So there was a discussion that was had as to whether we should split up the group or, what was decided. And it was actually quite an interesting discussion. And in the end, we decided not to do that because we figured there's not enough people that are in their 20s to early 30s that, you would need a young onset support group like that. We thought we can learn from them and they can learn from us. So if there's a group of people out there, or people as part of your group who are younger, who are worried about dating or money or jobs, you know what? We can create a little subgroup. We can give them advice. We can work on those things together. But splitting up groups doesn't make sense because we are a community. At what point do we start splitting things up that it's too split up? But at the same time, you have to make the best decision for your group. So in the end, we decided to keep it together and just counsel people individually as they needed.
Yeah. Karen, you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I have a little different perspective. I actually think it's okay to split it up if that works for the group. I think both are necessary and have a wonderful place in support group communities. But I know when I went to my first young onset group, it was in person before the pandemic, and I walked in and everybody was older. They were young onset, but they had had it for 18 years. And I think it has a lot more to do with progression. I find I get a lot of people call me and they don't want to come to a support group if there are people in the group that are advanced when they're young. And I think I don't want to leave anyone out, but they have a hard time seeing that. And I don't want them to feel that they can't have a place to come. So I think there's a possibility. Maybe if the group's big enough and it has both, you could have breakout sessions to address certain needs of the group. But that's still, I think there, in my experience, has been good to split groups up.
I think if the group's big enough, yeah, I think what I'm hearing, Tom, you have something to add though. Go ahead, Tom.
Just real quick, Kat, I think it's good for, like, I just turned 60. I'm a little over 61, I think. Yeah, 61. And I think it's good to have the kind of background available to people that are newly diagnosed that someone like myself or the rest of us in this council have, because we've kind of been there, done that, or, this ain't our first rodeo kind of thing. And that's where I've been probably the most helpful, or I've seen the most attention is from people that are newly diagnosed, that are just looking for some answers and some guidance and some things like that. So I think if anything, if groups get split up, that's a good thing too, because they're, we all have different needs and we're at different stages. But you can always count on someone like myself or Kevin or someone else that can offer that kind of a guidance and opinions on questions that you might have. So maybe once a quarter we come in and help with the YOPD group, whatever, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Robin?
As a practical matter, one of the questions in the chat about this was, are we misleading people? I've been leading the group for a long time. We all started out young onset, but now technically we're not young anymore. And it's easier to just change the group name than worry about succession planning. Like if you have an established group that's cohesive and meeting regularly, maybe you could be the formerly young onset group and someone can start a new young onset group. But I think succession planning is difficult for these types of groups, and better to just change the name if you decide that you are misleading young people, and technically young onset diagnosis doesn't mean you're 20 or 30. It's like under, I don't know what it is, under 50, under 55.
It depends on who you ask. There's not universally agreed upon age.
Yep.
Kevin, you had something.
Yeah, I think this young onset is really not a chronologic age, but a state of mind age or issue. I mean, I learned so much from one of my best buddies in San Francisco who I box with. He's 74 and he will kick ass on anyone on this group right now.
Yeah.
But, he has so much youthfulness in him. I think just looking at the spirit of where you are when you have your diagnosis, are you trying to raise a family? Are you dealing with personal relationship issues? Are you trying to maintain a job? These are all things that transcend age when you're 20 all the way up till, the end of our journey. And I think to be segmenting and denying that, I mean, I fully appreciate that different subgroups will have some issues, but as a whole, we gain so much when we talk to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I think I want to circle back a little bit and kind of because we're talking about the need for support groups. We talked, all of us in our sharing about how we get out of holes, talked about the importance of community, and support groups can really be the entrance into a lot of that. I know that's how I met some of my folks. I know that some people look at this, for me, showing up here as somewhat a support group. So I think that it's really important that people not feel included. And at the same time, I think that as groups grow, naturally, sometimes they can segment off. And I liked sort of what Sri said, that giving them the opportunity, if they want sort of a separate section, maybe that will be more meaningful to them. So I think before we head out of here, I can't in good conscience, the week before our Thanksgiving holiday, not talk about gratitude a little bit. And since I have the honor of being the facilitator, I just want to say how grateful I am for each and every one of you who showed up today. I'm deeply grateful for the insights that our esteemed speaker came and shared with us, and her taking time out to come and share with all of you. I want to give her some applause, but I'd also like to hear if there's anything in particular that you all are grateful for? Since I stole the obvious one, sorry. Who wants to share some gratitude or what you have coming up next week? Heather.
I have tremendous gratitude for people that take the time to try to understand a little bit about Parkinson's, and they love me when I'm not very lovable. They love me if I'm off, or if I'm on and manic, or if I'm on and sort of okay. I went to trivia night the other night with some friends who I hadn't seen in a long time, and I don't go out to drink anymore at all, so I just don't see anyone since brain surgery especially. And they were like, what's wrong? Like, what happened? Because I was sort of shuffling along, and then pretty soon they just went along with me. I just said, I'm a little stiff. And I pretended that I was sort of like doing the robot and stuff. And it just ended up being kind of funny. Like, it was all good. So I want to give a good shout out to our caregivers, friends, relatives, coworkers who just go with the flow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Kevin.
I'm thankful for chocolate, but even more than that, dark chocolate and a good Cabernet.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. But in more seriousness, I really I'm very grateful to the Davis Phinney Foundation for giving us this vehicle for chatting. To me, this has been my savior more than anything.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah, Robin.
I'm grateful to be invited to this group. Many of you know I've been stalking you. I've been watching these webinars for, the last year or so, emailing you, and it's nice to be part of this.
Well, we really appreciate what you brought today, Robin. Really.
Glad you're here.
Yeah, glad you're here. Anybody else?
I'm
Tom's
grateful.
going to be grateful to get out of his car, I think.
Oh, it's hot in here.
It's getting hot in here.
Did you have something? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Just that I'm grateful for your interest in my movement and my music choices. And I'm very happy to hear that they give you a lift, because that gives me a lift. So
They really do. Thank you so
really
much.
do.
Can't wait
Thank
to
you.
try it. I haven't checked it out.
Her website's beautiful.
I'm going to
Yeah.
do more
Really
exploring
nice.
there.
Pamela, can you chat? Can somebody put Pamela's website in the chat? It probably is already there.
it's pdmovementlab.com.
They put it there.
Perfect. It's there.
It's there.
Fabulous. So we've given, if you're out there feeling a little lost, feeling like like you're in a hole and you can't get out, at a minimum, you can type a few things into your computer, and some of it you're going to have to pick and choose. Not one of us here is the same. Not one of us here has the same Parkinson's symptoms. Not one of us is going to need the same tools to kind of get out of our space, headspace. So I think, Pamela, do you want to send us off with a little movement break?
Yes, I'd love to do that.
If we run over time, she's just going to send us off. So
It's under 3 minutes.
that's all right. So we're going to hear some great movement and some music, and I'm wishing you all a wonderful holiday next week, whatever you celebrate. Thank you for joining us. The floor is yours, Pamela.
Okay, so you need to stand up if you can. And
Does everyone
just
have pants
let
on?
me shift my camera. There you go. All right. Here we go. Start by shaking the wrists. And include the elbows. And shoulders. Just shake it all up. Whole spine. And let's have arms go front and back. Include the hips. And take a big circle. And reverse direction. And big circle. And reverse.
Oh, sorry.
And stretch all the way up. Big stretch. Way up. And down. Up. Down. Up. Down. Up. Side to side. And take the weight, shift the weight back and forth in your feet, and take it into moving. Just move any which way. And 2 feet, balance, 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 and back to wrist. Elbows, shoulders, hold on, include the spine. And arms go front and back, include the hips. And circle again, like hula hoop, circle. And raise up, way up, stretch up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And shift side to side, into steps. And stop. That's it.
And if you couldn't see, you could do your interpretive dance.
Yeah, I couldn't quite see. I just did whatever.
Heather, I saw you. I started cracking up when I saw you do the.
Thanks so much, everybody. I hope everybody that joined into that dance feels a little bit better. I know I feel a little bit looser. And Pamela, your choice of music is fabulous.
Wonderful. That was on a series with Kevin Bacon called I Love Dick. That's the name of the series.
Okay, you can type that into the chat. Heather,
great series. Great music.
Thank you all for coming today. Lee, thank you so much for your help in the chat. Everybody at the Phinney Foundation, we appreciate you and we appreciate your time. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.